Hello everyone, welcome to a new chess video. Welcome to the EVANS Gambit class, a super aggressive gambit full of traps, which is what you all like the most. In this video, I'm going to show you the whole range of traps you can prepare by playing this opening. What's good about this opening, besides the multiple traps, well, above all, that opponents usually don't know it, especially up to 2000 and something ELO, they are very poorly prepared for this gambit. How did we get to this position? Let's show it quickly, because that way we can see how to reach the EVANS gambit position. We play e4, e5 from the opponent, you know, the two most famous moves in chess, the double king's pawn, knight f3, knight c6 defending the pawn, bishop c4, Italian opening. And you know that here there are two options, playing the two knights defense or playing the most popular one, bishop c5. Well, against the most popular one, bishop c5, we are going to play this brutal move, which is b4, giving away a pawn in exchange for gaining some extra time, on top of the extra time we already have for being white. We are going to see here all the options the opponent has. I mean, it's worth it for us to have them take this pawn in exchange for the time we're going to gain. It's definitely worth it. And we're going to explain here all the options we have when they take this pawn gift on b4. First, what we are doing here is gaining this tempo with the move c3. Notice that now if this bishop were to retreat here, it would have lost a tempo, and it's true that we are down a pawn, but we already have this foothold to play d4. Although it is true, it doesn't necessarily have to retreat here. It actually has many options. It can retreat to a 5, chi5, d6. It can also retreat to e7, and the one we're not going to calculate is if it retreats here, because it would be losing a super valuable tempo since it would have to move it again, right? Therefore, we're going to start with the first one, the most logical one. Although, even so, it's not good. They would already be making a mistake. Bishop c5. Let's see how to take advantage if they retreat the bishop to c5. Well, obviously, here we are going to play d4 directly, which is why we played c3, and when they take, we'll see that this pawn is also a gift, and we've given away two pawns since we aren't going to take here again, because they would have this check available, okay? Or even retreat. Here, what we're going to do is, against all odds, castle. Look, and let's focus well on this position. We've given away two pawns, but in exchange, we have a very open center. Lots of tactics pointing around here, a queen open on both sides, and the king castled. It's very important that the king is castled and the opponent has theirs in the center. Let's see here. What happens if black makes the move that seems most logical and is, at the same time, the most played in this position, which is pawn takes pawn, e takes c3, d takes c3, sorry. Notice that here, black would be left with 3 extra pawns. We could recapture this one with 2 extra pawns, but here what black wants is to get out of trouble. They trade this loose pawn they have over here for that one over there, and that way they ensure they have 2 extra pawns. Well, notice that that is already a mistake. And if you've seen us, which I highly recommend if you haven't seen the video, which is a bit long, like this one, on the Italian Gioco piano, we have very similar ideas. Bishop takes f7, check. We are giving away the bishop, drawing the king out of its squares, a deflection sacrifice, and when they take our bishop, we have the move queen to d5, check, and attacking this bishop. For example, if the king moves away, we could capture the bishop and then recover this pawn, regaining the material we are down. But first, I recommend you give this check, and when they advance here and weaken this diagonal, we will take the pawn, and now we are threatening to take this pawn and also taking advantage of the open diagonal. Let's review for a moment up to this point, because I think I went too fast for some. e4, e5, knight f3, knight c6, bishop c4, Italian game, bishop c5. The most popular response against the Italian game. And here we play b4, the EVANS gambit. We give away a pawn in exchange for gaining a tempo with c3, and we are seeing what happens if the bishop comes to c5. We will play d4. When they take on d4, instead of recapturing, we are going to castle. Waiting for them to take here and sacrifice our bishop. But notice that here black will say, okay, fine. So if you have this whole plan and I'm going to end up losing, I'm not going to take that pawn there, but instead I'm going to make a plan very similar to the Mora gambit, which is to advance this pawn. If you want the video on the Mora gambit, which is also a spectacular gambit, leave it in the comments and I'll make it without any problem. It's going to be a video just like these ones you like so much. Leave me a big like because I'm working really hard on this and I'm giving it to you completely for free. Let's see what happens if they advance this pawn here. Well, notice that this is still a weakness, and we are going to take full advantage of it now with the knight. Notice that we're attacking this point with the knight and with the bishop, and it would have to be defended with one of the two knights. Notice that whether it's defended this way or it's defended this way, the plan is the same. What is the plan? Well, look, this bishop is still hanging, and what we're going to do, for example, let's see them defend with this knight, right? Well, we're going to play bishop takes, check. They have to capture with the knight. Knight takes. They have to capture because if not, look at the skewer between the queen and the rook. They have to capture. And now, yes, we're going to take advantage of the fact that the bishop and the king are exposed, and we are going to win the bishop. How? If queen d5 isn't possible now, but queen h5 is possible. Notice that it's check, and when the king moves away, check over here. Notice that if the king comes, for example, where could he come to? Now, in fact, if he comes here, it's bad, simply because we would capture with check. No, it's simply the same thing. I wanted to give all the options. Okay, if he comes here, well, we capture with check, and then we'll recover that without any problems, alright? Notice that if they attack us over here later, we could simply come over here, and we would recover this pawn on the next move. So we've seen e4, e5, knight f3, knight c6, bishop c4, bishop c5, b4, Evans gambit. We capture here, c3, we gain time. We're looking at what happens with bishop c5. We've seen that. We would play d4, pawn takes. Here, instead of recapturing, since black would have a check, we'll castle. We've seen that capturing was very bad. We've seen that d3 was very bad. Here we are going to see a very logical move as well, which is knight f6. I almost forgot. I wanted to mention it at the beginning. Very important. I'll show it to you on screen so you can see it. Of course, totally included in the academy, right? I was keeping it very quiet. It was released exactly today by Grandmaster Tomas Sosa. 10 advanced chess concepts. They are 10 meticulously selected classes so that you can verify that logically chess can reach a very high level, okay? Tomas has explained it in a spectacular way. All of this is included in the academy. You see it in Spanish, okay? But it is also available in English. You already know that the academy is available in both Spanish and English, okay? This course is 100% included within the academy, just like the classes from Julia's course, right? On basic fundamentals, which are spectacular classes, also in Spanish and English, like everything else, like Flavia's classes. Look at how many classes we have here, huh? We can see many more classes, okay? And logically, apart from all these classes, which are spectacular, you also have access included to Chessable, huh? With everything unlocked, which is the best application to be able to study your openings. Look at how fun this is. For example, come on, I want to learn how to defeat the French. So you go in here, right? And for example, well, you click on practice the main lines, right? I practice them a little bit, and when I know it by heart, well, I move on to the next one, right? Very good. Then you can review, next line, and that way, well, keep practicing, right? And in the majority openings even, these are the openings. In most openings, well, what you can do is even practice by playing. For example, let's see, Catalan opening. This one specifically includes video. You could, for example, practice it, right? Here you have many more languages. Well, you also have, of course, middle game, end games. I really like, for example, practicing endgames, because here you can practice them. Look, I want to practice a pawn endgame that I'm really bad at. Though, I practice at it, right? Let's see, this works really well for me. It doesn't go here, but it tells me you have to advance this one, right? Well, very good. And here, win the opposition. Well, you already know that all of this is included within the academy, but the good thing is that now, you have a spectacular discount because of this, let's say, this course we just added by Grandmaster Tomas Sosa, where you can see here what the classes are like. Yes? I'm gonna show it to you here for a moment so you can see exactly what it's like, okay? Tomas explains it to perfection. You're going to see that he's a grandmaster with over 2,500 ELO points. Well, this is getting out of hand, right, friends? The idea is that now, if you use the link in the description, and only if you use the link in the description, friends, because otherwise it won't work, you'll get a 25% discount. But it's not just that you'll get a 25% discount. Look, you're going to get a 25% discount on all plans, and it's forever. Let me explain. Check this out, friends. I'll put it in euros for you now, okay? I have it in Spanish, but it's the same in the other languages, alright? You sign up, for example, now with the 25% discount. Instead of 49 euros, you'll be paying 36, but not just this month. The discount is forever. You're gonna keep it forever. So it's a golden opportunity to be able to get in now at an exclusive price. For example, look, if you want to pay for the whole year, we go from 399 euros to 299. That's 100 euros in savings. This would come out to just 24 euros a month. I assure you, it's a golden opportunity. If you want to try it out, I'll leave it for you in the description. Knight to f6 is also a very bad move. Notice why it's so interesting to play this Evans Gambit. Well, because we have so many ways to win, and the opponent has so many options to make a mistake, that if we know them well, we're gonna win most of the games. That's why it's so interesting. Now, let's see how to win when they play this knight here. If you're enjoying this video, don't forget to leave me a big like, since I do this completely for free, because I love explaining things to you and learning with you. So leave me a big like, and above all, leave me comments, because I love talking with you all. Look, this move is a mistake. Why? Because it's allowing us to capture on d4 with a gain of time. Now, black no longer has this check, which is why it was so important to castle. And after the move takes d4, this bishop has to go wherever it wants. Let's say, for example, back here. Well, now we have the move e5 attacking this knight, and this knight doesn't have any good squares to retreat to. If it comes to e4, simply with a move like queen e2, this knight is completely trapped. Notice that it can't be defended with either d5 or f5, since there is the en passant capture, okay? Therefore, this move is very bad. Let's see what happens if they retreat it, for example, to h5 or to g4. Well, notice that if it comes here, we're going to play the move bishop takes f7 check, and when the king comes here, simply with a discovered attack, check with the knight, and on the next move, we'll take this knight with the queen. And besides, black would have lost the right to castle. Let's look at the best variation for black to defend. But I propose a hyper-aggressive variation that will drive you crazy. Those of you who are more aggressive are gonna love it. Take a look. They take here, we come with c3, bishop c5, d4, e takes d4. Here we don't recapture. Remember that we castle. And now we've seen all the moves here, right? Pawn takes pawn was bad, advancing the pawn was bad, knight here was bad, black is running out of options. The only option left is d6, which is actually the best one. Well, here, what we're gonna do is recover this pawn while gaining a tempo, since they don't have the check. When the bishop retreats, what can we do now? Well, I'm gonna call it the liar. And you'll ask me, why, chess teacher? The liar? Because it's the most aggressive move of all, and it looks like the most passive one, h3. Notice that now black is threatening to come in with the bishop very powerfully, because after knight takes d4, they'd be putting a lot of pressure on us. Therefore, we have to stop this bishop from coming here. With h3, we're forcing black to continue with their development, but preventing them from coming here. They attack the pawn, we simply defend it, black castles. And here, ladies and gentlemen, we are going to be the ones entering the aggressive variation. Notice that now the roles have reversed thanks to h3, and we are the ones pinning the knight. And notice that here we are attacking very heavily. We are threatening on some occasions to enter through here, but above all, look at where you're going, little knight, coming with the knight to d5 and putting on spectacular pressure, since now, if this were possible, after capturing, we would force black to recapture with the pawn, leaving the castled position completely exposed. Therefore, here black plays h6 in 99% of games. We maintain the diagonal of the important pin. We shouldn't leave, because otherwise we would be wasting everything we are trying to do. And now, what happens if they play g5 against us, which is the only move that saves the pen? Well, notice that here, the new engines already give as a totally winning move. Look, totally winning, sacrificing the knight over here, and after the knight is captured, we will recapture. Notice that the pressure continues. They no longer have h3 as an option. We have traded a piece for 2 pawns, and we have left the king completely exposed. And at the same time, we have regained this totally impressive pressure. There is only one move here that saves black, and I suppose you've guessed it. Bishop takes d4, since it continues to defend this knight, and at the same time is putting pressure on this knight here. Here, if you want, I propose a trap, which is to place the knight here, giving away the rook, because if they take the rook, after queen takes bishop, we would be applying pressure in a totally brutal way, and we would win the game here without any problem. The thing is, this is just a trap, and it could be that by playing this, they don't take our rook, and we end up, a little bit worse off. Therefore, I recommend a totally incredible move, and for that, we have to ask ourselves a question. Let's see, what is supporting the knight, which is our main threat? Well, the bishop on d4, which is why it came all the way here. So then, what we are going to do is knight to e2, threatening this bishop, forcing them to take our rook. Notice that we said before, sure, if they take the rook, we win, but if they don't take it, then what? Well, here we are, gonna force them to take it. Notice that here they have several options. For example, they could come here, but we would attack them, and they would have to come here, and for example, here we would attack them like this, or even easier without giving away the rook, and now they wouldn't be able to stay on this diagonal. Therefore, what we are doing is forcing them to take the rook. Once they take the rook, we will simply take this bishop, and we will be putting a lot of pressure here. Is there still a move that saves them? Yes, knight e5. Notice that it is blocking the diagonal, so they are still saving themselves. But as you all might have guessed, the good move here is f5, telling this knight to get out of here. If you want to take this bishop completely for free, go ahead and take it, because now I'm going to take this knight here, I'm attacking the queen, and I'm defending with the bishop. Notice that this bishop is absolutely lethal because it doesn't let anyone come here to protect, and when the queen moves away, wherever it moves, there's no need to even bring the queen over here. Because simply by moving the rook to the third rank, we're threatening to enter here, and we'll be completely winning. There's no way to save yourself from checkmate. Notice that it's an absolutely incredible position where we are down a full rook, but it's a super aggressive variation to counter the bishop on c5. We've seen that after the Evans gambit and taking, retreating the bishop to c5. All the variations give us a massive advantage. Let's see, chess teacher, all this is very nice, but how do I win this position being down a rook? Well, I was gonna move on to the next one, but I thought maybe some of you don't know how to finish off this position, so I'm gonna show you. Imagine that black tries to defend, for example, with queen to d5 to come with the bishop and try to defend. I'm telling you, there's no better option. Well, we would simply come with the rook check. The king can't come here because the bishop is there. It would have to come over here. We would enter with the rook check. Notice that this bishop is also defended by the queen. This queen is attacking, this knight can come in. We are attacking with all our pieces, while the black pieces, look where they are, far from the king. The king has to leave. Now, what are we going to do? Well, check with the bishop. Notice that this queen is still defending the rook, so the king has to go here. And now we would deliver checkmate with the knight. Spectacular. Notice that this variation is hyper-aggressive, but we are going to deliver checkmate anyway. Many of you might be thinking, okay, if bringing the knight out to f6 is a mistake, since we can easily take advantage of it, as we just saw, what happens if they play the knight to e7? What happens if black knows that this knight cannot be brought out to f6, and they bring it out to e7 instead? Well, notice that since I like to explain all possible variations in a video so that you have the entire repertoire to be able to win, we are also going to explain what would happen if they play the knight to e7. Well, look, in this case, the knight, which is the best defender of the castled position on f6, would be completely missing. Therefore, with a move as simple as, knight g5, we would be threatening this point right here with the fork, practically forcing black to castle. And once they've castled, they no longer have the best defender of the castled position. So a move as simple as queen h5 would be completely winning. We are threatening checkmate. The only way to stop it is h6, and after the move knight takes f7, we would be completely winning. We recover the material, we are threatening the queen, we are threatening discovered attacks. For example, if the queen were to move away here, with this move, we would be giving check and recovering the queen. We could make any move. Imagine that black moves it away here. Well, it's exactly the same. We would come here, and with this check and the discovered attack, we would recover the queen. Therefore, we would be completely winning if they bring the knight out here. So, and forgive me for the repetition, let's go back to the beginning. I think it's very important to maintain concentration from the start and remember all the moves so as not to lose the context. Knight f3, knight c6, bishop c4, bishop c5, b4, setting up the Evans gambit, bishop takes b4, c3. We have seen all the options for bishop c5, how to punish absolutely all of them. We see that it's a very bad move. Let's see what happens if they play bishop a5. It's a slightly better move, and I'll tell you that this is the most popular one. Bishop a5 is what they play in the majority of cases. The second most popular is bishop c5. So let's see what happens with bishop c5. Obviously, if you've been paying attention, you'll know that the next move is d4, giving away this pawn since we aren't going to recapture it. First of all, right now, because we can't, here, we can't capture because it's pinned by the opponent's bishop. So here, what we're going to do is, instead of castling, play queen b3. Queen b3 isn't the main line, but rather the secondary line with better results. Seeing that the black rival, forgive me, the rival with the black pieces, knows the line, or has been lucky, let's say, in finding the move bishop a5. Let's say they know the line. We are going to apply brutal pressure with the bishop and the queen on this point right here. Notice that now it can be defended in two different ways, queen e7 or queen f6. Let's play queen e7, that way they leave the exit for the knight to f6, since that would be the most logical move for me. Well, when they play queen e7 against us, we're simply going to castle, okay? Now we can finally castle once we have the pressure applied. Notice that here we have given away 2 pawns, and eating a third one would be an excess of gluttony. Why? Well, notice that here, after recapturing with the knight, we are threatening to enter with the knight right here with fatal consequences. Therefore, here they would have to give us the bishop pair with bishop takes knight, and upon capturing queen takes bishop, we would be threatening this point here with this queen. Therefore, they would have to play knight f6 no matter what. And now we would have a wonderful move. We'll bring the bishop out here, we'll bring the bishop out to a 3, taking advantage of the fact that we don't have the b2 pawn. Sometimes our own pawns that we've given away are actually giving us escape routes, which would just get in our way if the pawns were still there. We'll bring the bishop out here, defended by the queen, attacking this queen. Notice that they are forced to play d6, since it can't move away this way because we would take it, and if it comes here, we would already be threatening to enter here again, attacking with the queen or the knight. And besides, this bishop would be blocking the castling, therefore the queen can't move. They would have to play d6. And now the deadly move is e5. Notice that they cannot capture. Obviously, they cannot capture with the pawn because the queen is pinned. They would have to capture with the knight, but after knight takes knight and queen takes knight, notice that the queen and the king are completely exposed in the center, and with a move like rook fe1, we would win the queen. So as we have seen, after all these moves, bishop a5, d4, e takes d4. Here, we are going to play queen b3, as I mentioned, attacking this point, queen e7, and we are going to castle. As we have seen, eating this pawn is an excess of gluttony. Black is already up 2 pawns, why eat a third one and complicate things? Here, the good move is to retreat their bishop, defining this pawn to b6. This is black's best move, but we are also going to see how to play against it. Well, here we are simply going to recover the pawn. And if you notice, now black has played this bishop over here to be able to recapture it with the knight. Well, here what we are simply going to do is capture with the knight, and after the capture, we are going to come with the knight over here. Notice that now we have brought the knight out here again. We are threatening to come over here. We are threatening several things. The best move for black here is knight f6 to castle quickly. It's the most common move and also the best one. We are going to react here in the following way. We are going to return to the tactical theme of the pin that we have seen in previous versions. What are we threatening now? Well, to come with the knight here with fatal consequences. Notice that what they can do here first is play c6 to avoid this knight jump. In fact, the best move here is c6, and what we are going to do is, bring this bishop out from here to force them to trade to remove it from the defense of this knight. For example, if it came here, we would play f4 again, and this bishop would have to leave or trade. Therefore, we are forcing them to take our knight. Once they take our knight, and we capture back here, notice that we have multiple threats. You might have realized by now that this pawn can't be taken, since if they take it with a move like rook e1, we would be winning the queen. Therefore, this pawn can't be taken. Notice that the most normal thing here is for them to castle, and what I like to do is bring the rook into the attack. Look, in this plan, we are using ideas from the previous plan. Therefore, if you understand this video well and watch it as many times as you need, we will be able to gather all the ideas and when you play a game, all the ideas will come to your mind and you will be able to win in every way, no matter what they do. Notice that here we are threatening to bring this rook into the attack, and once this rook, imagine now that they play, for example, this move to bring out the bishop. We'll bring the rook into the attack. They might bring the bishop out here to try and trade. Simply put, here we could take this bishop. Notice that they can't take with the pawn, since it's pinned by the rook. They also couldn't take with the queen, since we would then be taking the queen completely for free, as it couldn't be taken back either. Therefore, the threats would be spectacular. So let's see what happens with black's last option, which is the most solid one. Bishop to c5. Here we are gonna play the Evans gambit. Sorry, my mind is wandering. We take here, c3. We've seen what happened if they retreated to c5, we've seen what happened if they retreated to a5. What happens if they retreat to e7? Well, notice that this is the most solid response from black, returning the bishop to e7. You might say to me, Chester, it's impossible for black to have problems here by retreating to bishop to e7. There are no attacks. There are no attacks, my dear friend. There are no attacks. I'm going to explain to you how to attack this. We are going to play d4. What happens if e takes d4? Notice that now we would be playing the same technique as before again, breaking in the center to give mobility to these bishops. And now notice that this point can no longer be defended with the queen because this bishop is blocking it. Therefore, with an attack like queen b3, putting pressure on the f7 point, we would be completely winning. Notice that they can no longer come here because we would simply capture, and now we would be putting pressure here again. Therefore, they can't defend with the knight, and there is no way to defend this. So taking here is a very bad move. Let's see what happens if, instead of capturing, they play, for example, d6. Well, exactly the same thing would happen. We would come with queen to b3, this queen cannot get to the defense, and we would be completely winning by entering with the bishop and also pulling the black pieces out of their castling. Therefore, what is the good move here when we play d4? Sorry, this is here. When we play d4 on black's side, well, the good move is knight to a5. If they play knight to a5 against you, which is the good move, I'm going to explain the two ways you have to deal with this move. If you play knight takes e5, you simply recover the material, and after knight takes bishop and knight takes knight, we're left with an equal position. It's true that it's a very comfortable position to play, since we can castle on the next move, we have the bishop that can already come out, so we have a pretty comfortable situation. But I'm going to recommend a move that I like even more, which is this is here, and this is here. When they play knight to e5 against you, it's to play the bishop to d3. And notice that now, after capturing, we'll take back with the pawn, and we have a very good situation with a very good pawn center. And when they bring out the knight attacking this pawn, we still can't play e5, because they would come here, but we can play knight to c3 first, clearing the square after castling, and that way we could play e5. Notice that this knight could no longer come here, but instead would have to retreat, and the situation would be very favorable. If instead of castling they play, for example, d6 to avoid this, we would have the resource of bringing the queen out to a4, check, and we would win the knight, since it can't retreat here, because d5 would be, a move where we would win the knight. I hope you loved this video. Leave me a big like, because I've been recording this for over an hour and a half, although with the cuts it will have ended up being a much shorter and more flexible video to be able to explain it, without you losing an hour or two of your life. So I hope you loved it. Leave me a big like for my voice, which can't take any more, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye!